Welcome to Home Education Matters, the weekly podcast supporting you on your home education journey. Hello and welcome to another episode of Home Education Matters, and today is scheduled to be our last episode in our home education journey, or our journey into home education with Ash and Ismail. And I say it's scheduled to be because obviously things are very fluid, and who knows, we might want to throw another episode in if Ismail decides he hates school and wants to come back out in autumn. You never know, stranger things have happened. So, but as is planned, today is our final episode, and I really wanted to catch up with Ash and find out how June has been for her, but also to get a kind of sort of a little retrospective on her year of home education. And so, Ash, thank you so much for joining me again. And I want to just say before we start, you have been a stalwart in turning up for these podcasts because every month without fail, you've been a superstar, and I really appreciate it because from my perspective of running a podcast, the last thing that I wanted was like somebody who would commit to doing it and then not turn up, or it would be a nightmare. But you've been solid as a rock, and I massively appreciate it just from my personal perspective.
I'll put that on my CV. Solid as a rock, definitely.
It feels like it's a song. I feel like it's a song lyric, but yeah. Tell us all about your June and how things have been going for you, because I know you're kind of winding down for summer now.
Yeah, so we really wound down quite a lot. So I think the last time we spoke, I had mentioned that Ismail's got his transition days at his new school coming up. So he had 3 transition days because he will be starting in year 7. So most schools have that anyway. But so he had 3 days. So that week we completely wrote off because it was a lot of kind of prepping him to go in, and then he was exhausted. So it's interesting because he did 3 full days. So I was concerned that because of our pace with home education, first of all, he has a much later start, which naturally suits him. And so I was worried about the very early starts, and then actually having that mask on the whole day I was wondering how that would turn out for him and for us. Because it was just the 3 days, so it was a Tuesday, Wednesday, and a Thursday, I feel like he was in kind of performance mode for the whole 3 days, because you can do that for 3 days, can't you? I think it's when it gets longer that it becomes more of a challenge. But he really enjoyed it. He really enjoyed the independence, to be able to, get to school and then work his way around this massive building and make, I guess, the friend aspect not so much at the moment. Like, I think he knows people, but he's not there saying that they're my friend or any of those things. So that's one of the elements that we're going to have to keep an eye on. However, he really enjoyed his 3 days, and he's not dreading September. So that's positive for him because he's looking forward to it. I say that because, is it wrong to say, a very small part of me wants him to say, oh, that's rubbish. I want to stay home and I want to be home educated because you're such an amazing teacher and you're teaching me all those wonderful things. But no, that's not happening. So he's very much happy, very much looking forward to September, and we'll see how it goes. As opposed to, with regards to everything else in the month of kind of June, July, we've done lots of kind of winding down, kind of consolidation of the areas that I think that he might need to be prepped in for September. I forgot to say his motivation is at an all-time low for doing anything at home with regards to work. It has been for a few weeks now. We were on holiday last week, so we went abroad. We went to Cyprus for a week, and that was lovely. And he got to do all the things that he likes doing, which is all the independent kind of trying to speak Greek and all those sorts of things. He really enjoyed that. But yeah, as opposed to that, we haven't actually done a massive amount of, I would say, sit-down learning for the last kind of couple of weeks. I'd say we've wound down for sure for the summer.
I think there are 2 camps when it comes to home education, and I think there's a camp that takes holidays off and there's a camp that goes all the way through. And I think if you're going to take holidays off, then I think they need to be sizable holidays. I think enjoy the period. You don't have to stick to school terms or school holidays. So it makes complete sense that having gone away for a week and obviously had these inset days, that Ismail's focus and his gaze has gone to the horizon, right? It's gone to what his next step is going to be, which is going to be school. And I think you're fighting a bit of a uphill battle if you want him to be doing maths and English every day.
Well, we did. I did already say to him, I said when we go away on holiday, that'll be kind of like our finishing off holiday kind of thing to celebrate the end of the year. So he's definitely in mode. But interestingly, you say that in the times, because I'm definitely of the camp of we have holidays because that's what Ismail would want. I think he enjoys that time off where he doesn't have to think about school work, and I say that with inverted commas because it's work essentially to him. However, in those times where we've had those breaks through the course of the year, I feel like his learning has been really creative and he's been doing it without realizing he's doing anything. So that when the pressure is off, it's interesting to see how children can actually, use that in their own initiative and learn things without even realizing they learn them. So I would say definitely that's the positive for having that pressure off.
I think that that's a really good example of something that you have gained from home education. This awareness and ability to identify learning when it's happening, that's not like sit down learning. And I'm assuming that even when Ismail's back in school at the weekends and on holidays, you will have that heightened awareness, like kind of spidey sense of, oh, look, he's learning, which you perhaps didn't have before you started home education. And I wonder if there's any other examples of things that you sort of feel like this is something that I gained through the year, or we've gained through the year, that we will now take with us into more of the conventional school system.
I think at that point where Ismail was, if I think reflect back kind of 12 months ago, this time of year, he was really emotionally struggling. He was having like meltdowns quite regularly. And I think that his confidence was at an all-time low, really low self-esteem. And I think the biggest thing that I'm going to take away with me from this year is the fact that he has that confidence in himself again. And his self-esteem is built up, and I guess he's able to recognize his emotions more, which is something that we were working on. I was working on this with him, with a child therapist at times as well, kind of through year 4 and year 5, and I wasn't really getting much from it. I wasn't seeing the rewards of it. However, clearly that learning was going in, because now he's had some time to just kind of have a rest from that. He's able to recognize his emotions and self-regulate much better. I'm hoping that continues into kind of year 7 and beyond. It's interesting because it's hard to tell how much of his maturity is down to his age changing and him getting older anyway, and how much of it is down to the fact that he's been able to take some time out from school and the pressures that were on him at the time, and able to reflect. But time will tell with that, I guess. We'll see what happens kind of September, October time as we go into it, and see how how things unfold. But for sure, his confidence and his just ability to his resilience, I would say, is what his desire to want to tackle problems that are coming to him has improved massively.
It must be a huge relief to you to see within Ismail these inherent qualities, these inherent qualities of resilience and confidence and emotional awareness that perhaps, I'm guessing as a parent, that perhaps you worried maybe either weren't there or had been detrimentally or almost kind of permanently impaired by his school experience. But now actually you're able to see that really quite quickly these were able to re-emerge. Must be really lovely for you as a parent to see that that's still there just under the surface.
I mean, mums always are, aren't they? Usually are the biggest champion for their children. So I have always, known he's got those things. I see them. I see how funny he is and how intelligent he is. I can see those things because of the conversations that I have, that maybe a teacher at school wouldn't pick up on those because he wouldn't be his true self in those situations. One of the things that I remember talking about really early in the podcast, I think it was our first one or maybe even our second one, was how Ismail had this tendency to be a perfectionist and how he didn't even want to have a go and didn't even want to start things because he was so worried about doing it the wrong way. I have felt like we've unpicked that, and I think he does just give things a go. I think he's figured out his way of doing things as well, because I haven't put pressure on him to say kind of, you're going to be demonstrating your learning by writing a 1,000-word essay on whatever, because I've been kind of like, how do you want to show that learning? What do you want to show me that you've learned, and things like that? Because I put the onus on him and given him that kind of independence to be able to show me in the way that he wants to, express himself in the ways that he wants to. He gives things a go now. It's not like a barrier. What will be interesting to see is when we're back in a school setting, and secondary schools are a bit more kind of like, you will do this because you have to do this, and everyone else is doing it, so you have to. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to that environment and whether that perfectionism creeps back in again, or if he's able to show that resilience and able to just give things a go. So I'm very happy with the work and the progress that Ismail's made. I do have an element of fear, I guess. I guess that's probably putting it a bit strongly, but a bit of I think trepidation, I guess, about what's going to happen going forward, and will they break him again? Will the school system break him again? And that's a worry, obviously.
Do you feel, looking back now, that that's what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think school is made for everybody, because it's not a cookie cutter. I guess not everyone's the same, are they? Everyone has a different way that they approach education. Everyone has different strengths, weaknesses, and I think it depends on the school that you're put in. I think some schools are really great at the pastoral care and kind of looking at children and looking at the whole child, and doing what they can to support your child. Often, though, and this is coming from my teacher brain, when you've got 30 kids in your class, you're not going to be able to give all of them the attention that they need, and you're not going to be able to know exactly everything that you need to know about every single child, as much as you try. And I like to think that one of my strengths in my teaching was building those really good relationships with all of my children. But you can't do this if you don't have the time. You can't practically do it for all 30 and be the best that you can be and be that teacher that they need. So I think part of it depends on the school that they go to. I 100% believe that the school that Ismail went to, as outstanding as they are, as great as they are, and as high, people see them in the area as a very good school, a school that you would move to this area to go to that school. They really failed him in many ways. I feel as though he was not seen. No one was willing to work on the issues that he had. No one was willing to kind of like give him that opportunity to grow and learn and be that way, and to break him down by tearing up his work, for example, because it wasn't underlined correctly or whatever it was. Those sorts of things to stay with you as a parent, like that will stay with Ismail as well. And I can clearly see where that perfectionism has come from. So absolutely, I think if you're in the wrong school for that person, because that school might be perfect for another child, but for Ismail, it wasn't the right school. And I think we needed this break. We needed that time away, because I dread to think if he'd stayed in year 6, where we'd be now, going into a massive change of secondary school, his confidence at an all-time low, all those sorts of things that we've had the chance to work on. I don't regret the decision I've made at all. I think it's the best decision that I made for him at the time, despite all the naysayers and all the things that I've heard and had to kind of like battle through. I think absolutely I did the right thing for him, and I think he's in a much better position to start year 7. Or, gives year 7 a go, and if things don't work out there, they come back. He knows that it's a positive environment for him. It can work for us. So, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, and I think just as the decision you made a year ago was the right one and the only one you could make, and was the biggest and bravest decision you could make, just in exactly the same way, I really admire the decision you've made this time to put him back into school, because under the circumstances, seeing what the school system did to him and then seeing how he has recovered from that, but then still having that trust in him and still honoring his right to make a decision to go back into the school system is a really brave one. And I really admire you for that, because I think a lot of us would be really tempted to try to kind of override it, because, we're a bit worried about it. But you really are respectful of his choice, and I really admire that, because it's another example in a 12-month period of a big scary decision and a big brave decision you're making as a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there have been temptations there, of course, to like make school seem like the worst thing in the world for him, so he stays off. But Ismail is very strong-willed. He knows what he wants, and I know that whether he wants to go to school or doesn't want to go to school, he will let me know. His behaviors will let me know. So I would be doing him a disservice if I didn't give him the chance to go and try and make that work. And absolutely, he will learn the lesson himself. I think that's one of those things as a parent, you have to sometimes let your kids make those decisions and see how they play out, and just support them and be there for them either way, which is hopefully what I'm doing with him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way you say it makes it sound very easy, but we both know as parents it's not as easy as it sounds, right? To be able to do that. It sounds to me like for you, this home education year has been a very healing kind of restorative process, particularly for Ismail, but for all of you as a family. Is there anything else, when you look back at the last year, that you really feel has been a gift?
Absolutely. So I think for me, like when you're in the school system, it's all go, go, go. And people who have been in the school system and then have taken that break will definitely relate to this. You have to wake up at a certain time. You're restricted by the holidays you take. Your day as a parent is kind of, you drop your kids off, often after having meltdowns or whatever, getting them into school somehow, that horrible feeling of basically doing a full-time job before you even started your real work if you work. So having that, and then the 6 hours that you get before you go and pick them up again, it's very restricting. The routine is very restricting, especially if your children aren't thriving in that routine. So it feels almost like, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we struggling? So what I've felt over the last year is that the pressure's just been off all of us. There's no kind of like, we have to get up at this time, we have to make sure uniforms are ironed, we have to make sure that, you know, pack lunch boxes are ready to go and all those sorts of things. So that pressure being off has allowed us to rebuild our connection, I guess. Not that it was a broken connection, but I think you get so busy in life, you don't get the chance to really enjoy those moments with your children, do you? You just don't sometimes. And having that pressure off has been great. And sometimes, you know what, like if he's woken up and he's thought, I want to sleep a bit longer, we've been, okay, fine, do that. You can wake up later on and work till a bit later on, whatever you want to do, as long as you get what you need to do done today, done. That freedom, I'm really going to miss that freedom. And actually, my 3-year-old is going into nursery in September as well. So the both of them are going. The house is going to seem very empty. I work from home, so the house is going to feel very empty, which I'm looking forward to in some ways. But in some ways, it's going to be really sad because I've really cherished that time that we've had together as a family.
Talking of looking forward to things, are there things apart from, you know, being able to have a cup of tea to yourself without being interrupted, things like that? Are there things that you're looking forward to for the next year, for the next academic year, for you, for Ismail, for all of you?
I think for me, I'm looking forward to watching Ismail thrive in an environment that he wants to be in and that he's comfortable in. I am. Yeah, it feels like it's a bit of a chance. We'll see what happens, but I'm looking forward to him actually. You know, I think he feels like he belongs. He likes that feeling of belonging to a community and belonging to a school community in particular. So I'm looking forward to him hopefully thriving or, you know, making the most of that situation as he can. And I guess, yeah, maybe not having to stress so much. I mean, I say this, not having to stress so much about the work he's doing, but I'm sure I'm still going to be chasing him to do his homework. I can imagine that because it's gonna be a shock to his system not having to, I guess, you know, do all the homeworks and all those sorts of things, and learning being, you know, not necessarily explicit learning, sometimes being quite implicit. I think he's going to have a bit of a shock to his system. Probably I am too. So that's I hope that, you know, I get a bit of a break from having to plan things and do all those sorts of things, but I feel as though there will be more of that involved in my future.
What about from a personal perspective? I mean, you're right that when it comes to parenting, you trade one sort of stress and pressure for another sort of stress and pressure. It never really goes away. But are there things that from a personal perspective you're quite looking forward to in the next year?
I'm looking forward to having that time to myself. So I say it's difficult. It's very difficult juggling home education, working, and all the other things that you have to do. Just living, I guess, being an adult. So I am looking forward to one of the pressures being relieved, just somewhat. So of course, I'm looking forward to having that time to myself. I think that's going to be take some adjustment because even now, even though we've kind of taken the pedal off doing our academic work and things, it's still something in the back of my mind. I think it maybe takes a while to switch off from kind of like, I should be looking for the learning opportunities in these things and maybe just switching off from that. But no, so I am looking forward to that time and the pressure being off me. Because I said, we spoke about this in the beginning as well, and maybe all the way through, with the theme has been feeling that weight of kind of educating Ismail is my responsibility. So I'm looking forward to that responsibility being taken off me to an extent, because of course as parents we're always educating our children, but also like, yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds, see where it goes, and being able to adapt to that, both of us, myself and Ismail, being able to adapt to that and having the confidence to be able to say that's fine, we can stay at home and we can do the home educating because that works best for us. Yeah, so I guess that's always good to know and good to have that we've got that between us.
And I think when you talk about letting go of some of the responsibility, you know, being that single point of responsibility when it comes to his education, I suppose that the flip side of that is that you also lose that sense of control of, you know, what he's learning, but also how he's learning and the environment he's in. And it's a case of coming to peace with that. I'm guessing, you know, that you as a parent have to come to peace with the fact that you aren't responsible, which is good, but also you're not responsible, which is not so good. And it's just a case of kind of gently coming to terms with the fact that you can't control the environment he's in and the influences that are around him, positive and negative, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's it. And then not knowing, there's a big unknown. I won't know what he's doing for a big chunk of the day, but I'm kind of used to that, having he's been in mainstream education up until kind of last year. So it's been nice. I say nice knowing everything that he's up to in the day, and I can kind of, to an extent, keep an eye on what he's doing, who he's talking to, those sorts of things. And going back to kind of not knowing not knowing what he's doing for 6 hours of the day, it is something that's in a way good and in a way not so good. So yeah, I think that's going to take some adjustment from both of us as well.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I have learned from having children who are now older, and there'll be people listening to this whose children are much older than mine, who will definitely be nodding along, I'm sure, is that, and you will know as well, is that parenthood, everything shifts all the time. Everything changes all the time. Nothing stands still. And the child that like ran between your legs 1 minute is now taller than you, and it feels like it goes in the blink of an eye, and it just morphs and shifts into something beautiful, something even more beautiful. It goes from like a flower to a bird to a peach or something, and it's just always beautiful, but something almost completely different, such that you can almost not recognize what you're looking at. So I know I speak for all of our listeners when I say that I wish you and Ismail the very best of luck, and I'm sure that Ismail will continue to thrive in whatever environment he's put in, because you have laid so much foundation work for that, and the two of you have worked so hard in the last year. And it's lovely as a home educator, as a long-term home educator, to see how home education can almost be like kind of a brief medication, like a little brief intervention to be a healing process. And it's been really lovely for me as a long-time home educator to see that microcosm of home education and the healing power that it has over the last year. So Ash, thank you so much for coming on the podcast with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for all your advice as well, because I think it's nice to be able to have somebody to talk to, and other people who are listening and know that it's we're all in this together, I guess, essentially. So I really appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for having me.
We are, and once a home educator, always a home educator, so you'll always be part of the community, even if you don't want to be. Thanks, Ash. It's been lovely having you on, and you never know, maybe we'll catch up again in the future. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Home Education Matters podcast. See you at the next one. Have a lovely day.